Nothing's gonna stand in our way. Not tonight. We want it all. 10 points if you know what song that's from. Okay, this is Caleb Jones. This is I guess I'm in this also. Caleb Jones, Alpha 2.0. How to survive and prosper and thrive during a coronavirus problem. Lesson number 10. We're up to 10 of these now. Damn. Focus on cash flow. Cash flow. Now I say cash flow and you go, oh, okay, make more money. No, that's not what cash flow is. Everyone thinks they know what cash flow means. No one knows what it fucking means. Cash flow is cash flow. Cash flow is not income. Those are two completely different things. You need to focus on cash flow, not income. Now, you also need to focus on income as well, but we're doing this in steps. So in the last lesson, I said what? Cut expenses, right? Cut expenses. Get those down. The reason I told you to do that is because you want to maximize your cash flow, okay? Cash flow is not income. Cash flow is income minus expenses. What you have left over, that's cash flow. Now, it's a little more complicated than that in terms of business, but that's good enough for this lesson, okay? You need to focus on the amount of money you have left over every month after your expenses before your income, not just income. You also need to focus on income too. We'll talk about that later, okay? But right now we're talking about cash flow. Cash is king. I learned this from my mentors. You can have businesses that have a lot of income and terrible cash flow and go out of business, okay? You can have people, and I know people like this, who make a lot of money, and go bankrupt. They make a 6-figure income, sometimes 7-figure incomes, and they fucking go bankrupt because they couldn't control their cash flow. They have plenty of income, but not cash flow, okay? Very important that every month starting now, or every week starting now, you control your cash flow like it's your life, because it is. So that means you maximize this and you minimize this. Hopefully you've already minimized this. At the end you get this. You need to focus on this number, not this number, and not this number, what's left over every month. Because you may need the excess if this lasts longer than we plan. In a down economy, in a recession, in an economic downturn, you want to maximize your savings. You want to maximize your emergency savings. If you're part of my SMIC program at joinsmic.com, if you have ever gone through any of my online courses, or some of them at least, I talk about having an emergency savings account or emergency savings structure. I've got this. I have 8 months of expenses in an emergency savings account. A percentage of that is in cash, a percentage of that is in gold. So no matter what happens, I'm covered for at least 8 months. And I have a lot more buffers on top of that. I'm covered for a lot more than 8 months. But you get my point. Now, if your cash flow is good, even during a contracted time, you can take that money and add it to your savings, okay? You want to maximize this because if cash flows are bad, you can pull it back out. And if you're self-employed like I am, you may have months during a recession that are okay, where your cash flow is okay, and you can build up your savings and add some money in there. The very next month, cash flow may be poor, which means you may have to pull money out of savings, okay? You don't just want to say, okay, I have 6 months of savings, therefore I can just pull 6 months of income out of my savings account. No, you want to maximize that 6 months so it lasts 8 months, or 10 months, or 12 months, or a year and a half, or what have you. Okay, now obviously if you have no money in savings, what the hell are you doing if you have no money in savings? That's a whole different conversation. But if you have no money in savings, this becomes even more important. Cash flow becomes even more important because you have no money in savings, like most Americans. Most Americans have no money in savings. Most Americans couldn't put their hands on $1,000 in case of an emergency. I believe the stat is most Americans could, and Europeans too aren't much better, most Americans could not handle anything over a $400 disruption in their month because they don't have this. So if you don't have any savings, you really need to focus on cash flow. You really need to cut your expenses and you need to jack up your income as much as you can. Both at the same time, focused on this, which is cash flow. Very important. Cash flow is not income. Cash flow is the money you have left over at the end of every month. If you're negative and you have no savings, now you're screwed, right? If you're negative and have some savings, you're pulling money out of your savings. If you're positive, you don't go spend the money. You don't go to Taco Bell again. You put it back into savings to extend your savings account. Cool? Cool. We'll talk more about this maybe later in future lessons, but it's really critical you get this. Focus on cash flow during times of economic contraction. Really, really, really important. Frankly, you should always do this, frankly, but you really need to do this in times of recession. Join SMIC.com. If you have more questions about this, need more help, need more resources, I will see you in the next lesson. Stay rational, take action.